Costello had a few drinks to calm his nerves. This helped to maintain his composure in the face of assimilating himself for someone far more important. For Costello, Avery towered above chasing the intoxication he so often desired. She paced him, and for a minute it felt like was taking the lead, but then recognized Costello was laser-focused on pedaling his ass to Maine. This wasn't just about packing the right supplies or food. It had nothing to do with his cycling capabilities. His doctor told him, without a doubt, this tour could kill him. He was disregarding professional medical advice and putting himself at risk to do something he just couldn't see being put underground, having never accomplished. The tour was his one act of martyrdom, and the respect he felt for himself running that risk was immense. Avery cleaned their glasses and after a few drinks started hydrating Costello. She'd run several half marathons and according to her, she could be prepped in less than a week. She never let running get in the way of her social proclivities. Avery developed a hard and fast training program that never failed her. Costello addressed the fact that a half marathon was running for about 3 hours, and he was preparing to cycle 3,000 miles with the left ventricular outflow tract obstruction. He wasn't downplaying her many half marathons. He was trying to balance out the adversities he was facing. The biggest concern was maintaining an appropriate speed and limiting miles. He would most likely finish the tour about a week later than the average cyclist tackling the same trek. The time wasn't the issue. It was ensuring he had enough supplies and planning his stops according to his limitations. Avery never proclaimed to be a cycling expert and made sure he understood she would have no part in the itinerary. She wanted to focus on his conditioning, supplies, and most important, she wanted to suggest microdosing psilocybin rather than continuing his risperidone. She saw this as a way for them to expel some of his toxins and cleanse for the tour. It would take several days, if not weeks, of microdosing to see if he was managing his mental illness without the pharmaceuticals. Costello was pretty hesitant about this suggestion. It was by far the one thing he was the most skeptical about. However, he told her he would consider the idea. He figured who really gives a shit? He'll probably be locked up for murder anyway. Why not add some minor drug charges? Avery said he could microdose 3, maybe 4 times before he departed. This would give him time to see how he felt. If it wasn't working, he would get back on the risperidone and be back on track within a few days. This would give him more time to condition. It was a win-win. He asked when he would start. Avery unveiled a 1/4 gram already pounded into a powder and said she could make him his first tea today. Costello had gone all these years without trying psilocybin, and now he's staring at a light brown chunky powder that he could take in the next few minutes, like it was a new drink at the local coffee shop. He dropped his head and ran through dozens of random memories. When he was done, he lifted his head and Avery was sitting at the table with 2 mugs of psilocybin tea. She certainly wasn't going to send him off on his own. Costello walked over to her and smelled the tea. He nearly vomited from the smell. This didn't help Avery's cause, but she was unfazed. She said not everything good smells good, tastes good, or looks good. She told Costello the plant medicine would be a tough swallow, but ultimately truly benefit his mental illnesses if he could just choke it down. He grabbed the mug and chugged every last drop down. She smiled and drank her share. She told him he wouldn't feel anything, but today wouldn't be a good day to start conditioning. They could focus on continuing the itinerary and hit the conditioning on an off day from the plant medicine. "I won't feel anything, you say?" Costello said. "If you feel anything, it will be only a desire to focus on your dreams. That's what we're here for, to focus on your dreams. No alcohol tonight, though. We'll have no cross-confusion. Once you've been microdosing a few more times and you're comfortable with it, we can incorporate a couple beers. You're not to be drinking with the conditioning anyway, so put that thought away," Avery explained in great detail. Costello liked the structure and discipline. He found it odd coming with the use of psychedelics, but a Renaissance man never questions their shaman. Avery checked the time to keep an eye on any changes with Costello. He was like a kid on Christmas morning waiting for Mom and Dad to give the okay to start opening presents. She was pleasantly surprised by his open-mindedness and excitement. She knows going into any experience on psilocybin, large or small, is always better when the mindset is positive. An hour passed and Costello told Avery he felt nothing. She made sure nothing also meant he didn't feel bad. She wanted to confirm he wasn't desiring the risperidone, more so than whether or not he was picking up fractal primary colors and tracers. He assured her he felt great and was having amazing clarity. He wanted to work on the itinerary. She was thrilled at the result of his first dose. Costello pulled out the work he had already put into the itinerary and talked about his passage through California and Arizona into New Mexico. They sat down with his tablet and weaved the itinerary from New Mexico northbound into cutting through the top of Texas and across Oklahoma into Missouri. The calculation of miles per day and his cycling speed based on the cardiac condition all bounced around the map perfectly. Every destination offered multiple options for lodging. There were stores at the ready for food, water, and supplies. They both knew it would start getting extremely cold towards eastern Missouri, so planning for tougher terrain through Kentucky and West Virginia versus the extreme cold of Illinois into Ohio was going to have to wait for another day. A couple more hours passed and Avery asked Costello how he felt. He said with complete confidence it was the best he'd felt in quite some time. He was excited about their progress with the itinerary and was ready to set more planning aside for another day. He was concerned about not being hungry and asked if that was normal. Avery told him it varies from person to person and it could just be the endorphins jumping from his excitement and feeling of success. She suggested they jump in the kitchen and make some food and see what happens. Costello got a good laugh. Avery told him to go get dressed. They were going to go out adventuring the streets of Los Angeles and find some food. It was the most exciting thing Costello had been told in years. He ran into his room like a kid and did exactly what she said. He had never been more thrilled to go outside of his apartment. He threw on some clothes and brushed his teeth. While he was brushing his teeth, it dawned on him. The pills made him act normal, but kept him inside. For the first time that he could remember, he wasn't drunk and wanted nothing more than to go outside of his apartment. He didn't even care if they found food. He just wanted to feel the air, hear the sounds, and experience the chaos. Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. Downtown Los Angeles, Spring Street, 1900 hours. For an early August evening, it was rather damp and cool. It felt like the city had been washed off. This was ideal considering the mild trip Costello was navigating. After all that bluster about not feeling anything, this larger stage brought the psychedelic to life. Avery found it endearing while simultaneously realizing all of his drinking became irrelevant and he'd been off his SSRI, so maybe his mental carburetor was open a little bit more than she had expected. He was happy, though, happy and thrilled to be outside. She took a long look at him and did what every seasoned plant medicine enthusiast does. She envisioned him on a much more powerful dose and wondered how he would react to a completely uncontrollable journey towards ego death. Then she remembered this wasn't about Costello expelling any demons. She was strictly tasked with subsidizing the pharmaceutical psychotropics. She gave a big shrugged sigh and got back to accompanying Costello on his first jaunt around the city through these new lenses. Costello ran up to Avery quite whimsically and pointed out the shine on the sidewalks from someone hosing down a storefront. She began to wonder if she'd dosed him a bit higher than she thought. She asked him if he was hallucinating. He grabbed her firmly, lovingly, yet firmly, by both her arms and said he was fine. He said it with a grin she's never seen from him. He told her he'd never noticed how beautiful the city was, through all the adversity, abuse, ailments, and haze of those lost on the streets. All the rhetoric and hating was a thin veil covering years of growth and evolution. The anguish of struggling businesses down in the shadows of the skyscrapers held out a hand of hope. Hope that he could step out of the wake of others and become part of the fabric with his own dreams. He went quiet for a few seconds and dropped his hands to his side. Costello looked at Avery and said he had no desire to drink. Even through his years sober, he couldn't remember what that felt like.